So I'm going to start off with just something that I thought about while we were chanting the Great Dharani. This is actually has something to do with the talk, but it's a personal story. I first came to Empty Gate Zen Center 79, 6. I was just before I turned 25. And I remember learning to chant the Great Dharani. And I think it's still true in the transliteration that you're all reading from. But there are parts where the word says shit. And my 25-year-old inner self just loved the fact that it kept saying shit, and we kept chanting shit. So you never know what's going on inside a person, even yourself. Where does that come from? Why do I feel this way? Why? That's our why actually isn't our question. Our question is what? What led to this young man named Jeff, who at the time was working as a carpenter, really trying to find a way to live that made some sense? What made that word shit so enticing to him? So I'm going to read something to start off tonight, and forgive me if it's a little dense. It's not scholarly, so it won't be dense in that way. It's actually a quote that I came across on Facebook. There's a Zen master in the Korean tradition. He's dead now. His name was Kusan Sunim. And somebody on Facebook uses his name and puts up different quotes from different Zen masters, some from Kusan Sunim, who was a very important, Kusan Sunim and Zen Master Sung San were both Zen masters in Korea who worked with Westerners. And it's rarer than you think. Kusan had Westerners come to his monastery, Sungwon-sa, I think the name of the monastery was, and they became monastics with him and practiced with him. Actually, one of the men who gave the Dharma talk during our winter series, Tony Sager, began his monastic training with Kusan. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Sorry, Tony. I had a roommate when I lived at Empty Gate Zen Center who went to Korea and practiced with Kusan Sunim. Anyway, this is a Japanese Roshi named Harada Tongan Roshi, and he was contemporary of Zen Master Sung San. He was born apparently in 1924 and died in 2018. And one fact that I came across on the internet that I thought was interesting was he was born in 1924, which means he was 20 years old in 1944. World War II ended in 1945, I believe, maybe 44. So he had signed up to be a kamikaze pilot. And the war ended days before his flight. And that shook him up. What does this mean? He was supposed to die. And yet here he was. And it really, now I'm projecting a little bit, but in my story of him, it made him wonder, what is this life? I'm supposed to be dead. Now what? So this is a quote of his. It'll take a couple of minutes. So stay with your breath, see if you can listen, and watch your responsiveness. Watch what goes on inside of you as you're listening. Now, here, all the universe is embraced in the one. I can assure you that all is well. All eternity is now, here, bold, clear, dignified, now, here, so vivid, so alive. filled with joy, waiting for you to see it. Now, this is in quotes. I will do whatever I can to benefit another. End quote. This is just life as it is, naturally. Please, please see it. Everything is alive. Great, great, alive. This is the happiness of all happiness. And this, quote, now here, unquote, can never be destroyed. The light of your eternal life is shining brightly now. What joy there is in this radiance. Please take care of yourself, your shining Buddha self. Become ever more able to appreciate your Buddha self. That is not to say to be arrogant. There is nowhere anyone to feel small, no one to be made small, no one to feel superior, no one toward whom you could feel superior. So who are you to feel vain and proud when your very source is all being? You are supported, you are nurtured, you are guarded by all being. Thanks to all being, together, one is all the universe. This breath is breathed, so close, always one, always together. Please never forsake the limitless treasure which is yourself. Be in touch. Simply do not look away. Grasp nothing. Hold nothing. There is just now, here, fresh, new, alive, now. Just do your practice with all good grace. I think almost everyone here has heard me speak enough, maybe except for you, Kobe, that you could imagine why that quote resonates for me. Alive, now. Everything is here right now. We get so caught up in the whys and the hows and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and our beliefs and our ideas and our fears and our feelings and our beliefs and our culture and in right and wrong. All these things are like a filter that filter out the life that we live at this very moment. He says, don't hold, don't grasp. When Zen Master Soeng talked about suffering, holding and grasping were two of the four most important points. My idea, my view, my life. We're always thinking in opposites. Life and death, coming and going, good and bad. We want the good, we want to be rid of the bad. But how do we really know? How do we really know what is good and what is bad? I know for myself, I use that language all the time. Oh, that's a good thing. Oh, you have that. That's wonderful. And that's true in the realm of human existence. It seems critically important to me that we recognize, again, you've heard me talking about this, the both and quality of life. This whole universe is one thing. And each particularity of that one thing is part of the whole. If one thing is missing, nothing is the same. In systems theory, if one part of the system changes, the whole system has to shift. We think of ourselves as discrete. I'm here, you're there. I have my life, you have your life. I don't touch you, really, you don't touch me. We just exist in this bubbling soup. And yet, everything is connected. The dust that blows off the Sahara Desert blows around the world and ends up in the Amazon. And that dust fertilizes the Amazon. Without that dust, there would be no life on this planet. Each thing has its place. Each thing is critical for the whole. And that includes you and me. Each one of us is critical to the whole. So why demean ourselves with up and down, with good and bad? Because as soon as we make good and bad, we pretend to put ourselves in the bad part. You're good, I'm bad. If I were just like you. But do we really know who you is? Every time I'm introduced, I think about what gets left out of that introduction. What am I? What is this? This universe is infinite in time and space. So in our practice, we turn our energy back. We turn the radiance back to ourselves. What am I? What is this? What am I? From that place, we let go and we observe. Last week, there was an interesting discussion, I thought, Julie gave the Dharma talk, and she read a quote by Pema Chodron. And the quote talked about hopelessness. And this hopelessness was very valuable for Julie. So she read it to us. Somehow in the hopelessness, there was a feeling that you could let go and you could just be. Marjorie, you had a whole different feeling. Hopelessness doesn't speak to you. And then a discussion ensued. It didn't quite go there, but it kind of went to right and wrong. Was it good to use hopelessness? Was it bad for hopelessness not to work for one? And we missed the point. There's a story about Zen Master Kyung Ho, who was really the founder, the revitalizer of Zen in Korea in the 1800s. And apparently in this story, he went to hear a Dharma talk, and a sutra master was giving the Dharma talk. And basically in the Dharma talk, the sutra master was saying, if you're a Buddhist practitioner, you should orient yourself to the good. You should have good friends, not bad friends. You should use good things to support your practice. When he was done, they asked Kyung Ho Sanim to give a talk. And he basically negated everything that the sutra master said. And he said, to be a Zen practitioner, you need to be like a carpenter. And a carpenter who's a craftsman, uses all the wood that's available. If you have a good piece of wood, you use it in that way. If you have what you call a bad piece of wood, you use it in another way. But we use all things. When we were remodeling our bathroom here at home, we bought these large, they're probably 12 by 12 or maybe 24 by 24 inch tiles for the floor. And the whole bathroom is maybe about 6 feet wide. So there was barely room for these big tiles. But the section of the bathroom where you walk in had room almost beautifully for 3 big tiles. So you enter in onto these big tiles. So we had this whole set of tiles, and we're trying to figure out where to put them. And each of them are different. They're not regular. They're the same shape, but the texture, they look different. So as we were playing with them, we had one that was very different from all the others. And we didn't know what to do with it. And all of a sudden, I had this idea, let's put it right smack in the middle. And it worked. Maybe another time with other things, it wouldn't have worked. So in a sense, we took the bad one and we made it the centerpiece of the bathroom. And it worked. So is it bad or is it good? We never really know. Good and bad are these arbitrary labels we give to things. But our practice is, how do we use it? So language is in itself a big deceiver. Hopelessness, hopefulness. Which one do you like? And what does it even mean? When I was considering this, I was thinking about, we have a couple of kongans that I like to use in koan practice. And so the way it works, we read the story, and then we have some questions we ask. And in both of these kongans that I'm thinking about, the first question says, the monk made a mistake. Where is the monk's mistake? And it's just amazing. Everybody finds the mistake. And then I think, really? Is that really a mistake? Or are you finding a mistake because I made mistake? See, language does that. We hear something, and then the language pulls us. That's not good or bad. That's what language does. You can say wonderful things about that, because the right turn of phrase can open up something that we've all not seen. Language is that powerful. But language is also powerful enough to close our minds and to make us like lemmings about to walk off a cliff. Our practice is to keep a don't-know mind. A don't-know mind means being a bit skeptical about our beliefs and ideas. So I said when I began reading the quote by Tangen Harada Roshi, watch your mind. Watch what you do with this quote. In a sense, his quote is neutral. He's just expressing his reality. Because of my karma, because of my life path, that speech was so powerful for me. But one of you might have listened to it and think, that's a bunch of hyperbole. Who cares about all that? It's just different conditioning. The challenge for all of us is to use our conditioning, to be aware of it, and to then use it. We're often entering into practice with a belief that I need to change. I'm the problem, and if I change, I won't be the problem anymore. So when we think of this concept of karma, we're constantly thinking, how do I change it? I'm miserable. I need to change my karma so I'll be happy. In his quote, he said, everything is alive, great, alive. This is the happiness of all happiness. What is that? Is it that we're so buoyed and happy and joyful that we're jumping up and down? Probably not. Something much deeper. Maybe if we let go of our sense of separation, we can touch into our connectedness. We can notice that everything everywhere is connected. There's a line in the morning bell chant. I'm just going to read a few lines here. It says, all minds are forever connected to this jade brightness. No thought ever departs from this golden form. Holding beads, perceiving the universe, with emptiness as the string, there is nothing unconnected. Everything is one thing. And this one thing has infinite faces, infinite projections. We don't understand. And we're wounded beings. We've all been buffeted and hurt in many ways, along with being quite helped, but hurt by many of the conditions that we found ourselves in. So we have some unprocessed hurt places inside of us. And in some ways, our practice is about uncovering them, allowing them. Usually we try to hide them. But there is another way, and that's to open to them. And the more we can open to things, the more we can use them. Rather than having to change in order to, maybe you could say, live our image of perfection, we can recognize that this very moment, including all of our unprocessed and unfinished parts, all of this is perfect. So Zen Master Bon Soeng, he doesn't say change your karma. He says use your karma and make it correct. So how do you use all of your experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sublime? Those are all names for something. All of it is energy. And all of it, we can bring all of it to the moment. I've been trying to speak about this now for a couple of months, and I haven't done a very good job yet. So maybe you could all help me after I finish. But I think I've actually spoken a little about this. This occurred, I was taking a class last month, actually in March. I took a class called Healthy Buddhist Boundaries. And it basically was about ethics in the Sangha. And it's about how to keep everybody, teacher, student, everyone safe within a Sangha. And that requires the teacher to recognize their position, to recognize that we all have a sense of, psychologically, we might say transference. We create other people in the image that we have of them. It's reminding me, I'm giving you quotes off Facebook, but there was one I saw a couple of days ago. I'm not going to get it back just right, but it said, each one of us has a story about who we are, and then we believe that's who we are. It went on to say, there are all these other people in the world who have a different story about who you are. And all of those stories are simultaneously alive. So who are you really? My view of who I am isn't really accurate. Your view of who I am isn't really accurate. So who am I? We don't know. That not knowing has the possibility of opening. So I was taking this class, and a lot of the class is oriented towards helping leaders in Buddhist sanghas to not act out on people who practice with them. Of course, the worst of it is the sexual transgressions that have happened over the course of many, many years, probably millenniums, of men with power using that power to get what they want. So some of this I know I've already spoken about, but I've been involved in ethics in the Buddhist community since the early 1990s. And really growing up in the late 60s and early 70s, I was very clear about the importance of boundaries and sexual safety for people in community. Even in high school, we were talking about that. So it was very natural for me to, once ethics became a topic of import in the Buddhist Sangha, it was very natural for me to take it up. And I really was the one who brought it to the Quantum School of Zen and kind of pointed out that we didn't have any ethical guidelines and we needed some. So I'm taking this class, and the teachers in this class see me as this older teacher who has really a lot of experience in this field. And the feedback I got by the end of the class is that I surprised the people who were running the class, because rather than be the expert who understands, I took the opportunity of this class to do my own introspection about the topic and see the unclarity in my own self. And one of the things I realized was that one of the things that keeps me on what I'll call the correct side of the ethical boundaries is I grew up with a fear of getting in trouble. And I've done a lot of psychological, spiritual work. I'm the Zen Master, the guiding teacher, as Marshall said. But there are still these places in me. I'm still afraid of getting in trouble. And that's part of the work that I still have to do, is working with that. And at the very same time, that actually works to my benefit as I'm trying to stay on the correct side of the ethical line. So even a problem of mine can be transmuted into something that helps me find my way. So in a sense, I'm saying this fear of getting in trouble is a little bit like my bad wood, but there's a use for it. Bad and good are only provisional names we give to things. If in the moment I'm faced with something and my fear keeps me on the right side, is that good or bad? We don't know. But it very often can be used, that language, make it correct. Use it for the benefit of all beings. That's what making it correct means. If we can keep our focus on being helpful, the traditional bodhisattva way of being willing to help rather than grab for myself, not only does that make the world a more peaceful and safe place for all of us to thrive, it also, in particular, points me right back to my practice. So whether I'm following the Bodhisattva path for a good reason or a bad reason, doesn't matter. If I follow it, it will benefit myself and others. Use your karma and make it correct. That's the Buddhist way. It's not about being perfect. It's not about becoming the archetype that we think we should be. It's about being ourselves, as we say, warts and all, without holding on, without being sure. Leap. Just do it, as Zen Master Bon Soeng would say. Alive. Alive. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. We like it when it works. We don't like it when it doesn't work. But all of us know it's those times that it doesn't work are often the most opening. Look back at your life. Look at the big catastrophe that has actually led you to this very moment. There's so much serendipity in this world. Why are we all here on this Zoom session right now? How did we get here? We come from so many different places. We have such different backgrounds. And yet here we are. I had a break this afternoon, and there's a cemetery on about a quarter of a mile from my house that I walk in. So it's open on Wednesdays for recreation. So I'm walking up in the cemetery, and I have this path that I often take. So the hill is steep, and I get a good steep climb right at the beginning. So as I'm walking in my usual way, I look up ahead. Many of you aren't going to know who I'm talking about, but many of you might. There's Patty walking down the other way. Patty is somebody who's been part of our Sangha for many, many years. She lives a somewhat marginal existence in downtown Oakland. And we haven't really seen her since the pandemic. And I run into her periodically at the cemetery because she comes out and walks there. But think about it. How did we meet on that path? It happened to be an open block in my scheduled day. She happened to be walking that same path. I might have chosen another path. She would have walked down, I would have walked up. We never would have seen each other. But somehow, there we were. And she said to me, I was just thinking about you. Which of course makes sense because every once in a while we run into each other. We don't understand anything. Use that and make it correct. Stay open. Stay alive. That is the Buddha way.